On that very morning, he looked at me like I was some sort of a joker, smogged first, then laughed hysterically. The Admiral himself. Also, 40 SEALs started cheering as he finished the course set for the drill, and then laughed when I stepped forward. All I said was, "Would you mind if I tried?" The laughter that followed. I will never forget it. You know that sound? That particular brand of mockery that cuts through your soul like a serrated blade? It wasn't just laughter. It was dismissal. It was the sound of 40 elite warriors deciding I was nothing more than entertainment. A joke. A break from their serious training to watch some admin girl embarrass herself. But they didn't know who I was. They didn't know what I survived. They didn't know that in the next 60 seconds, their admiral would watch me obliterate the record he spent 15 years protecting. Before we begin, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from because what happened next shocked every man standing on that field. The sun was blazing that morning. The kind of California heat that makes everything shimmer, makes everything feel like a mirage. But the pain was real. The humiliation was real. Standing there at that chain-link fence, watching Admiral Marcus Kane cross the finish line with his arms raised like some conquering hero, while 40 SEALs erupted in applause, that was real. Kane had just completed the Coronado Challenge course. His course. The course he designed. The course that carried his name on a brass plate mounted at the starting line. 15 years he'd held the record. 15 years of new recruits trying and failing to beat his time. 15 years of Kane pointing to that brass plate and telling everyone who'd listen about the day he set a time so fast, so perfect, that it became legend. For minutes and 37 seconds. The number was burned into the consciousness of every SEAL who'd ever trained at Coronado. It was more than a record. It was a symbol. Kane's symbol. His proof that he wasn't just another desk admiral who'd forgotten what it meant to be elite. And there he stood, 62 years old, still lean, still predatory, still moving like the apex predator he'd always been. Sweat gleaming on his weathered face, chest heaving just slightly, but that smile. God, that smile. Satisfied. Smug. The smile of a man who knew he still had it. The SEALs were going wild. Hooting, hollering, slapping each other on the backs. Some of them were filming with their phones, capturing their admiral's victory lap. Kane was eating it up, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, basking in the worship of the men under his command. That's when I stepped forward. I'd been standing there for 20 minutes, invisible in my simple BDU uniform. No rank insignia. No name tape that meant anything to them. Just another administrative technician in a sea of support staff. Radar tech, they'd been told. Some nobody from the communications department who'd wandered over to watch the real warriors play. Would you mind if I tried? My voice cut through the celebration like a blade through silk. Sudden. Sharp. Unexpected. The laughter started immediately. Not just chuckles. Not just snickers. Full-throated, belly-deep laughter that echoed across the training ground like thunder. 40 elite warriors laughing at the admin girl who thought she could play in their world. Did she just? Admin girl wants to run the admiral's course? This is gonna be good. Someone get this on video. The phones came out faster than you could blink. 40 cameras pointed at me, ready to capture my failure for posterity. Ready to turn my humiliation into entertainment for the masses. Kane himself was grinning. That predatory smile widened into something almost feral. He looked me up and down, taking in my unremarkable appearance, my civilian bearing, my complete lack of obvious athletic prowess. You want to try? His voice carried just enough condescension to make it clear what he thought of my chances. The Coronado Challenge course isn't exactly administrative work. More laughter. Louder this time. Sir, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest, I understand the risks. I'm willing to assume full responsibility for any injuries sustained during the attempt. Kane's eyebrows shot up. The formal language surprised him. Most admin staff would have backed down by now, would have retreated under the weight of all that mockery. But I held my ground. "Well," Kane said, spreading his arms wide, playing to his audience, "far be it from me to deny a member of my command the opportunity to learn her limitations." The crowd erupted again. They were practically falling over themselves with amusement. But not everyone was laughing. There was one man in the crowd who wasn't joining the celebration. A grizzled veteran with salt and pepper hair and eyes like chips of granite. Chief Petty Officer Martinez. Retired now, but still haunting the training grounds like a ghost from a more dangerous time. 25 years of special operations had given him instincts that ran deeper than conscious thought. And those instincts were screaming at him. Martinez watched me walk toward the starting line, and something about my movement pattern set off every alarm bell in his head. The way I carried my weight. The way my feet found the ground. The way my breathing remained steady despite the pressure of 40 pairs of eyes pouring into me. "Watch her stance," he whispered to the SEAL standing next to him. "That's not normal training." The SEAL glanced over, confused. "What do you mean, Chief?" But Martinez didn't answer. He was too busy studying the way I positioned myself at the starting line. The way my hands hung loose at my sides. The way my eyes tracked across the course, not with the nervous uncertainty of a novice, but with the cold calculation of a predator mapping out its hunting ground. Kane sauntered over to the timer, still grinning. "You sure about this, Tech? This course has broken better people than you." I looked at him. Really looked at him. Let him see something in my eyes that made his smile falter just a fraction. "I'm sure, sir." The course stretched out before me like a serpent made of steel and concrete. Ladder ascent. Rope climb. Low crawl under razor wire. Tire run. Wall traverse. Shooting station. Sprint to the finish. Each obstacle designed to test different aspects of elite conditioning. Speed. Strength. Agility. Mental toughness. And at the end of it all, that brass plate with Kane's name and his record time. 4:37. "Timer's set," Kane announced, his voice carrying across the training ground. "Remember, people, the record to beat is 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Set by yours truly 15 years ago." The crowd was getting larger. Word was spreading that something entertaining was about to happen. More SEALs were wandering over from other training areas. Support staff were emerging from buildings. Even some officers were appearing on balconies, drawn by the commotion. All of them there to watch me fail. Kane raised his hand. "On your mark." I settled into position. Muscles coiled. Mind clear. The rage was still there, burning in my chest like molten metal, but I channeled it. Focused it. Let it fuel me instead of consuming me. Get set. Time slowed. The world contracted to just me and the course. 40 voices faded to background noise. 40 cameras became irrelevant. There was only the path ahead and the justice waiting at the end of it. Go. I exploded forward. The first obstacle was a 20-foot vertical ladder. Standard technique was to climb it rung by rung, fast but controlled. Most people took 15 to 20 seconds to reach the top. I took 7. I didn't climb that ladder. I flowed up it. Hands and feet moving in perfect synchronization, my body weight distributed so efficiently that I seemed to defy gravity itself. By the time the crowd realized what they were seeing, I was already at the top, transitioning to the rope descent without breaking rhythm. The laughter died. "Holy shit," someone whispered. The rope was 40 feet of manila hemp hanging over a pit filled with sand. Most people rappelled down carefully, controlling their descent to avoid injury. I dropped like a stone in controlled freefall, bleeding speed with tiny adjustments until I hit the sand in a perfect crouch, already rolling forward toward the next obstacle. Elapsed time, 23 seconds. Kane's smile was gone. The low crawl was 100 feet of mud and razor wire strung 18 inches off the ground. Designed to test mental toughness as much as physical ability. The wire was real. The threat was real. One wrong move and you'd be shredded. I went through it like I was swimming through water. My body stayed perfectly flat, never rising more than 6 inches off the ground. My elbows and knees found purchase in the mud with mechanical precision. The razor wire passed over me so close I could feel the metal singing in the air, but never touched. The crowd had gone completely silent. Elapsed time, 1 minute, 47 seconds. Kane stepped closer to the timer, his face pale. This wasn't possible. Admin text didn't move like this. Nobody moved like this except. But that was impossible. Those people were dead. The tire run was next. 30 tires laid out in a serpentine pattern, each one requiring a specific foot placement to maintain speed without tripping. It was a rhythm exercise disguised as an agility test. I hit that pattern like I'd been born to it. My feet found each tire with metronomic precision. Left, right, weaving through the obstacles without losing a fraction of my momentum. The retired instructor Martinez was nodding now, his face grim with recognition. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Those movements. I know those movements. Elapsed time, 2 minutes, 31 seconds. Kane was gripping the timer so hard his knuckles were white. Impossible. This was impossible. His record was supposed to be unbeatable. 15 years of elite warriors had tried and failed to match it. And now some nobody admin tech was not only matching it, she was obliterating it. The wall traverse was a 40-foot concrete barrier that had to be crossed using only a series of handholds cut into the surface. Upper body strength, grip strength, technique, and mental fortitude all rolled into one brutal test. Most people took 2 to 3 minutes to complete it. I crossed it in 47 seconds. My hands found each grip with machine-like efficiency. No wasted motion. No hesitation. No fear. Just pure, mechanical progression from one side to the other, my body moving with the kind of precision that only came from years of training in places where failure meant death. The crowd was starting to murmur. Confused. Frightened. What they were witnessing didn't compute with their understanding of reality. Kane was no longer watching the timer. He was watching me. His eyes narrow, predatory instincts finally kicking in. Something was wrong here. Something was very, very wrong. The shooting station was his last hope. 5 targets at varying distances. Each one had to be hit center mass with a standard issue sidearm. Most people took their time, aimed carefully, tried not to miss. The shooting portion usually ate up a full minute of course time. Kane watched me pick up the weapon. Watched me check the chamber with movements so fluid they seemed choreographed. Watched me assume a firing stance that was textbook perfect. Then I emptied the magazine in 4 seconds. Pop. Pop, 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 pop. 5 shots. 5 targets. 5 perfect center mass hits. The electronic scoring system lit up like Christmas. Perfect score. Kane's hands were shaking now. His breathing was quick and shallow. This wasn't possible. Admin techs didn't shoot like that. Hell, most SEALs didn't shoot like that. Only one group of people had ever moved with that kind of lethality. But they were all dead. He'd made sure of that. The final sprint was 200 yards of open ground to the finish line. After everything that came before, most people were exhausted, running on fumes and pure determination. I ran that final sprint like I was just getting started. My stride was long and powerful. My breathing was controlled. My form was perfect. The crowd watched in stunned silence as I covered the distance in what felt like seconds, crossing the finish line with the kind of explosive power that belonged in Olympic stadiums, not military training grounds. The timer stopped. The board flashed. New record, 4:23. 14 seconds faster than Kane's supposedly unbeatable record. The silence stretched out like a physical thing. 40 elite warriors staring at the scoreboard, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Trying to understand how everything they thought they knew about reality had just been turned upside down. Kane stared at the timer for a full 10 seconds before his brain accepted what his eyes were seeing. When he finally looked up, His face was a mask of rage and confusion. He stormed toward me like a bull seeing red. "Who are you?" His voice echoed across the training ground like a gunshot. The question wasn't casual curiosity. It was a demand. A command from a superior officer who expected immediate compliance. I stood at the finish line, breathing steady, sweat barely visible on my forehead despite having just shattered a record that had stood for 15 years. "You asked if I wanted to try," I said, my voice calm as glass. "I tried." Kane's face flushed red. "Radar techs don't move like that. Radar techs don't shoot like that. Radar techs don't." "Don't what, sir?" I interrupted. "Don't train? Don't maintain physical fitness? Don't practice marksmanship in their spare time?" But Kane wasn't buying it. 15 years of command had given him instincts about people, about capabilities, about threats. And every instinct he possessed was screaming that I was something far more dangerous than I appeared. The crowd was starting to disperse, but slowly. Nobody wanted to miss what happened next. The SEALs were talking among themselves in hushed tones, replaying what they'd just witnessed, trying to make sense of it. Martinez pushed through the crowd until he reached Kane's side. "Admiral," he said quietly, "we need to talk." Kane glanced at him, then back at me. "Not now, Chief." "Sir, with respect, we need to talk now." Martinez's voice carried the weight of 25 years of experience. "Those movements. I've seen them before." Kane's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Martinez leaned closer, lowering his voice so only Kane could hear. "Siren protocol movements, sir. I was there when they ran the pilot program. I know what I saw." The blood drained from Kane's face. Siren protocol. The words hit him like a physical blow. A classified program that officially never existed. A Black Ops initiative so secret that even admitting knowledge of it was a court-martial offense. A program that had been terminated 11 years ago. A program where everyone involved had died. Everyone except... "No," Kane whispered. "That's impossible. They're all dead." "All but one, sir," Martinez said grimly. "The sole survivor. The one who got away." Kane looked at me again, and this time he saw something different. Not an admin tech who'd gotten lucky. Not some fitness enthusiast who'd trained in secret. He saw a ghost from his past. A living reminder of the worst mistake he'd ever made. Dismissed, he barked at the crowd. "Everyone back to your duties. Show's over." The SEALs began to scatter, but reluctantly. What they'd witnessed would be talked about for weeks. The day some nobody admin tech broke the Admiral's record wouldn't be forgotten anytime soon. But Kane wasn't thinking about his reputation anymore. He was thinking about classified files and buried secrets and a mission that went wrong 11 years ago in the mountains of Afghanistan. He was thinking about betrayal. He was thinking about the price of silence. And he was thinking about the one person who could destroy everything he'd built. The person standing in front of him right now. That night, Kane locked himself in his office and accessed the personnel database. He pulled up my file with hands that shook slightly as he typed. Sarah Chin. Radar technician. 3rd class. 5 years of service. Unremarkable performance reviews. No disciplinary actions. No special training. No combat experience. A perfectly ordinary file for a perfectly ordinary sailor. But Kane knew better. He dug deeper, accessing restricted databases, using command codes that few people possessed. He followed digital breadcrumbs through layers of classification until he reached the file he was looking for. The file that had been sealed for 11 years. The file that contained a single redline entry. Previous assignment. Classified. Siren protocol. Access forbidden. Authorization level. POTUS eyes only. Kane's hands were shaking so badly he could barely type. He tried to access the classified sections, but every attempt was met with the same response. Access denied. Unauthorized personnel. This incident will be reported. But he'd seen enough. The timestamps matched. The security classifications matched. The black hole personnel record matched. I wasn't Sarich in the radar tech. I was Ghost One, the sole survivor of Siren Protocol. The operator who'd escaped when everyone else died. The operator who'd witnessed his betrayal. Kane's secure phone rang. He stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Admiral Kane. Sir, this is NCIS Special Agent Williams. We need to talk. Kane's mouth went dry. About what? About unauthorized access to classified personnel files. About questions you've been asking. About digging into things that should stay buried. The line went quiet for a moment. Sir, I'm going to give you some advice. Stop digging. She's under protection. Federal protection. The kind that comes from very high up. The kind that makes admirals disappear if they ask too many questions. Kane tried to speak, but his throat felt like sandpaper. Do we understand each other, Admiral? Yes, Kane whispered. Good. Have a pleasant evening, sir. The line went dead. Kane sat in his office until dawn, staring at classified files he couldn't access, thinking about a mission that had gone wrong 11 years ago, and wondering how long he had before the past finally caught up with him. 3 days later, the word came down from command, special evaluation exercise. All senior personnel were required to attend. The Coronado Challenge course was being reset for official review. Kane knew it wasn't a coincidence. The brass wanted to see for themselves. Wanted to witness what their admiral had reported. Wanted to understand how some admin tech had shattered a record that had stood for 15 years. The bleachers were full. Commanders, officers, SEAL team leaders, support staff, everyone who mattered on the base was there. Even some faces that Kane didn't recognize. Federal agents, most likely. People who shouldn't exist, overseeing an evaluation that shouldn't be happening. I stood at the starting line in the same unremarkable BDU uniform. Same lack of rank insignia. Same perfectly ordinary appearance that had fooled everyone 3 days earlier. But Kane wasn't fooled anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, the course referee announced, this is an official review of the Coronado Challenge course record set 3 days ago. The current record stands at 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Kane watched me from the sidelines, his jaw clenched, his hands curled into fists. Part of him hoped I would fail. Hoped that whatever I'd done 3 days ago had been a fluke, a moment of impossible luck that couldn't be repeated. But deep down, he knew better. Competitor, take your mark. I settled into position. The same coiled readiness. The same predatory stillness. Get set. Kane held his breath. Go. This time was different. This time, I wasn't just running the course. I was making a statement. The ladder climb took 5 seconds instead of 7. The rope descent was pure controlled falling. The low crawl looked like something out of a nature documentary, a predator moving through tall grass, invisible and unstoppable. The crowd was dead silent. The only sound was the stopwatch ticking and my breathing, steady and controlled despite the incredible pace. The tire run was poetry in motion. The wall traverse was mechanical perfection. The shooting station was 5 shots in 3 seconds, 5 perfect targets, magazine dropped and cleared before the electronic scoring finished processing. The final sprint wasn't a sprint. It was something beyond human. New record for 09. 28 seconds faster than my previous run. 38 seconds faster than Kane's 15-year record. The silence stretched until it became painful. Then someone in the crowd started clapping. Slow, deliberate applause that others gradually joined until the entire gathering was on their feet. All except Kane. Kane was staring at the scoreboard with the expression of a man watching his own execution. When the applause finally died down, he pushed through the crowd toward me. His face was a mask of barely controlled rage and desperation. I know who you are, he hissed, grabbing my arm. I looked down at his hand, then up at his face. Do you, sir? You're supposed to be dead, he whispered. They're all supposed to be dead. Most of them are dead, sir. My voice was quiet, but it carried. Nearby spectators were starting to listen. 11 years ago, in a valley in Afghanistan. Operation Clean Sweep. Ring any bells? Kane's grip tightened. That operation is classified. Yes, it is. Classified and buried and forgotten. Just like the 8 operators who died when someone leaked their coordinates to the enemy. The crowd was getting larger. Word was spreading. Something important was happening. Kane's face was white as bone. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Tell me, Admiral, how much did they pay you? How much was 8 lives worth? You're insane. I'm the sole survivor of Siren Protocol, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the training ground. The one who crawled out of that valley with 2 bullets in my back and shrapnel in my lungs. The one who spent 3 years in military hospitals having my body rebuilt piece by piece. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Siren Protocol was legendary in special operations circles. A ghost story. A program that maybe existed and maybe didn't, staffed by operators who were either the deadliest people on Earth or complete fiction. Kane lunged for his sidearm. I disarmed him before his hand touched the grip. The movement was so fast, so precise, that most of the crowd missed it entirely. One moment Kane was reaching for his weapon. The next moment he was on his knees with his own pistol pointed at his head and his arm twisted behind his back in a hold that would break bones if he struggled. Federal agents, someone shouted. Nobody move. Men in dark suits materialized from the crowd, but they weren't moving to help Kane. They were moving to secure the perimeter, to control the situation, to make sure nothing interfered with what was about to happen. I leaned down close to Kane's ear, speaking just loud enough for the crowd to hear. 11 years ago, you sold the Siren Protocol team to Taliban forces in exchange for $2 million and a promise that your own operation would go unchallenged. 8 operators died because you leaked their insertion coordinates, their extraction point, and their mission timeline. Kane tried to speak, but I pressed the barrel of his own gun against his temple. I survived because I was running Overwatch from a ridge 2 kilometers away. I watched them die, Admiral. I watched them get torn apart by the people you warned. I crawled 4 miles through enemy territory with my spine held together by sheer will and a promise to myself. The crowd was completely silent. Even the federal agents had stopped moving, listening to words that were rewriting history in real time. What promise? Someone called out. I smiled that cold, terrible smile again. The promise that I would find the traitor who sold my team. That I would get close to him. That I would wait until the perfect moment. And that I would destroy everything he'd built before I put a bullet in his brain. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small digital recorder. Old-fashioned but effective. The kind of device that had recorded conversations 11 years ago in a military command post in Afghanistan. I pressed play. Kane's voice filled the air, tinny but unmistakable. Grid coordinates are November 774 Charlie Alpha. Insertion at 0300 hours. 8 operators, no backup. Payment on confirmation. A Taliban voice responded, $2 million American dollars. Your forces will not interfere with our operations in Sector 7. Kane's voice again, agreed. Just make sure none of them survive. Siren Protocol dies with them. The recording continued for another 30 seconds. Financial details. Confirmation codes. The casual, businesslike discussion of 8 murders. When it ended, the silence was absolute. Kane's career didn't just end. It exploded. Federal agents swarmed him as I stepped back, still holding his weapon but no longer pointing it at his head. He was screaming denials, claiming the recording was fabricated, demanding lawyers and congressional hearings and military tribunals. But nobody was listening. As the agents dragged him away in handcuffs, he managed one last desperate shout, "You ruined my career. You destroyed everything I worked for." I watched him disappear into the back of a federal vehicle, then turned to face the crowd that had gathered to witness his downfall. "No," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the training ground. "You ruined my team." The weeks that followed were a blur of debriefings, congressional hearings, and media coverage. The Siren Protocol story broke every classification barrier and dominated news cycles for months. Kane's court-martial was broadcast live on C-SPAN. His conviction for treason and murder was unanimous. But for me, the real victory came 3 weeks after his arrest, when I stood in the office of the base commander and watched him unseal my real personnel file. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen. Navy SEAL. Special Operations Qualified. Siren Protocol Veteran. Silver Star. Purple Heart. Bronze Star with V device. 11 years of being officially dead, erased from all records to protect ongoing investigations. 11 years of playing the role of an ordinary radar tech while federal agents built the case that would finally bring Kane to justice. 11 years of waiting for the perfect moment to destroy the man who'd murdered my team. The SEALs who had mocked me 3 weeks earlier now snapped to attention when I entered a room. The base personnel who had dismissed me as just another admin tech now understood why my movements had seemed so familiar to the retired operators. Martinez found me one evening on the beach, watching the sunset paint the Pacific in shades of gold and crimson. I knew those movements, he said, settling down beside me on the sand. Siren Protocol trained differently, moved differently. I was there for the pilot program in '98. Good eye, Chief. Not good enough. If I'd spoken up sooner. Kane needed to reveal himself, I said. He needed to confirm that he knew who I was and what I represented. Without that, we would never have gotten him to break classification and access the sealed files. The federal agents needed proof of intent. Martinez nodded slowly. 11 years is a long time to wait for justice. My team waited longer. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the waves roll in from the horizon. What now? Martinez asked. Back to special operations? New assignment. Before I could answer, we heard the sound of rotors beating the air. A black helicopter was approaching from the north, unmarked and flying low. It touched down on the beach 50 meters away, and a figure in a dark suit climbed out, carrying a red folder. I stood and walked over to meet him. Lieutenant Commander Chen, he said, offering a salute that I returned. I'm Agent Harrison, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I have new orders for you. He handed me the red folder. Inside were photographs, dossiers, and classified documents I recognized immediately. Tower 4 sends regards, Harrison said. 3 more names. I studied the files. 3 more traitors. 3 more individuals who had sold out American operators for money, for political advantage, for personal gain. 3 more targets who thought they were safe because their crimes were classified and their victims were dead. They were wrong. Justice isn't finished yet, I whispered, closing the folder and looking up at the helicopter. Harrison nodded. Transport leaves in 10 minutes. Are you ready? I looked back at Martinez, who was watching from the sand. He raised a hand in farewell, understanding that some wars never end, some missions never finish. I climbed into the helicopter and settled into the jump seat as the rotors spun up. As we lifted off, I could see the lights of Coronado Base falling away below us, the training ground where Kane's 15-year lie had finally been exposed. The pilot's voice came through my headset. Where to, ma'am? I opened the red folder again and studied the first target. A retired general living in Virginia. A man who thought his secrets were buried deep enough to never surface. Quantico, I said. But first, we need to make a stop. The helicopter banked east, carrying me toward the next phase of a mission that had begun 11 years ago in a valley in Afghanistan. Kane was finished, but justice wasn't. 3 more names. 3 more betrayals to expose. 3 more traitors who were about to learn that the dead don't stay buried forever. Standing at the edge of that helicopter door as we flew into the night, I thought about my team. 8 operators who had trusted their command, who had followed orders, who had believed they were serving something greater than themselves. They deserved better than the unmarked graves they'd found in that Afghan valley. They deserved justice. And they were going to get it. One target at a time. The ocean stretched out below us, dark and infinite. Somewhere down there, Kane was beginning his life sentence in a federal prison, his reputation destroyed, his legacy reduced to a cautionary tale about the price of betrayal. But that was just the beginning. They smogged first, I whispered into the darkness. They laughed first. They doubted first. The helicopter carried me east toward Virginia, toward the next target, toward the next phase of a war that wouldn't end until every traitor was exposed and every betrayal answered. But in the end, the truth outran them. The words were lost in the sound of rotor blades and rushing wind, but the promise remained. Justice isn't finished yet. It never is.